So I've already reviewed the Vivo V30 5G, one of the best mid-range smartphones to launch thus far in 2024. But it's about to get a bigger, beefier brother in the Vivo V30 Pro. So what sexy upgrades does the Pro model offer, and is it worth spunking out the extra cash for? Well, hopefully this unboxing and side-by-side comparison type situation will sort you right out. And for more on the latest and greatest tech, please do poke subscribe and ding that notifications bell. Cheers! So first up, what do you get stuffed inside that box? Besides, of course, the Vivo V30 Pro. Well, you've got yourself one chunky, flippin' massive 80-watt flash charge adapter, USB cable, tasty, and Vivo has also kindly chucked in a condom case to help prevent your V30 Pro from getting all biffed up. And that's your lot, nice and easy, so it's phone time. Now the Vivo V30 and V30 Pro sport a pretty similar design. In fact, I'm not going to say which one of these is actually the Pro to see if you can guess which is which. Is it good old lefty here or Mr. Right? Well, you tell me. You made your guess? Well, the Pro is actually here on the left. From the front end, they're basically identical, but if you flip them over, you will notice on that Pro model, you've not only got an extra lens, but you've also got the Zeiss brand in there on the camera bump. And that's certainly the only way I know of telling them apart. So the Pro, once again, sports a slightly curved display, just subtly wraps around the edges on the left and right sides, but thankfully without bulking up the responsiveness when you do grip this phone nice and tight. Just like the regular Vivo V30, you got that shot extension alpha glass up front, toughened glass to help protect it, but you've also got a screen protector pre-installed on there, and it's IP54 splash and dust resistant. And you got the same 4 color options for that Pro model as the Vivo V30. So this is the Bloom White model with its 3D petal pattern. And definitely still reminds me of old person's bathrooms, but it's certainly very unique. You could also grab the Vivo V30 Pro in Waving Aqua, Lush Green and Noble Black. Now you probably won't be shocked to hear that the software situation on the V30 and the V30 Pro basically the same. You got the pleasingly titled FunTouch OS 14 sat there on top of Android 14. So you got the same tools, the same features, the same customization options. You can even tweak the likes of the animation which plays whenever you use that fingerprint sensor. And speaking of which, it is an optical sensor on both of these blowers and both very responsive and dependable. Only really bulk up if your fingers are all mucky from cooking or something. But if that's the case, you do have facial recognition as a backup. Oh, and while Vivo originally told me that the V30 series would receive 3 years of OS upgrades and 4 years of security updates, turns out that was porkies. They're actually going to get 2 OS upgrades and 3 years of security updates. It is a slightly different storage type situation, however. The regular Vivo V30 offers 128, 256 or 512 gigs of space, depending on how much cache you stuff into Vivo's virtual G-string. On the other hand, the Pro starts at 256 gigs. Nice and generous. You could also upgrade that once again to 512. But sadly, in neither case is that expandable via micro SD memory card. Now the display tech is, as far as I can tell, identical on the Vivo V30 Pro as well as the V30 5G. You got a 6.78-inch AMOLED panel with a 2800 by 1260 pixel resolution, so spacious but beautifully sharp as well. So editing pics is a breeze, movies look absolutely stunning. You've got full HDR10 support here, although no Dolby Vision. Nice wide viewing angles as well, and you can tinker with the color reproduction as well. As you can see, I've got both the Vivo V30 Pro and the V30 5G stuck on the bright setting, but you can dial it back a bit if you want a more natural looking output. And it's not LTPO tech on either of these smartphones, but you do max out at 120Hz refresh. These phones can dynamically switch between 60 and 120 depending on what you're up to. And while these screens aren't quite as bright as some of the more premium flagships out there, they're certainly bright enough to use comfortably outdoors, even with a fair bit of annoying, irritating glare. However, one of the drawbacks of this Vivo V30 Duo is the fact that you only get a mono speaker setup, no stereo speaker arrangement, which is pretty uncommon these days. Thankfully, it's at least still pretty loud. Let's do a side-by-side comparison, starting with the Pro. Max that volume out at 150%, amusingly.
Now, to say that times have been a wee bit tough of late is kind of like saying James Corden doesn't have much talent. It's kind of understatement of the frickin' century.
And now the regular V30 5G.
Sure, you might not be able to afford the latest spangly Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra, but neither should you have to resort to a Barbie play phone.
So they're both certainly pretty loud when you bump them up to that 150% volume. I've got to say the clarity appears to be a little bit better on the V30 Pro. Not that there's a huge amount in it, and frankly, I would just use Bluetooth headphones if I was listening to music or watching a video with either of these blowers. Bluetooth because, of course, there's no headphone jack action. You got no Dolby support here or anything like that, but you do have the Super Audio feature, which, as you can see, you can just tweak the audio depending on what you're up to. Now, one of the big differences between the original Vivo V30 5G and the fresh new V30 Pro is the actual chipset that runs the show, the brains of the operation. So the Vivo V30 used Qualcomm's Snapdragon 7 Gen 3, whereas the V30 Pro upgrades that to MediaTek's Dimensity 8200. And both of these Vivo blowers have 12 gigs of RAM, but as you can see, it's the Pro that comes out on top on the Geekbench benchmarking tests. Quite a big difference between them with the multi-core score, so the V30 Pro is certainly better for multitasking, juggling lots of apps at the same time. And I found in my real life test that it's undoubtedly better for gaming as well. So for instance, kicking back with some Genshin Impact, I found it was a pretty smooth experience on the regular Vivo V30 5G, as long as I left it on the medium graphics settings. If I tried to crank that up any higher, I saw quite a few stumbles and judders here and there, so it's not really worth it. On the flip side, however, those visuals can be absolutely maxed out on the Vivo V30 Pro model, and you'll still enjoy a beautifully fluid frame rate. It's truly excellent performance from MediaTek's Dimensity 8200. And good news if you're a bit of a gaming addict, because both of these phones remained cool even after a couple of full-on hours of reasonably intensive action. And for both of these phones, Vivo is offering its 50-month smooth experience guarantee. In other words, the performance of your shiny new V30 shouldn't get all cack and slow for at least 4 years. And for the battery life, you're once again looking at very similar results between the V30 5G and the V30 Pro. You got identical battery tech, a 5000 mAh capacity cell, and the change in chipset seems to make minimal difference. And the good news is when these phones are completely drained, both the V30 5G and the V30 Pro charge up in a nippy type fashion. You got 80 watt wired charging support, which means under an hour with the plug bunged in them, they'll be back up to full. Sadly, no wireless charging on either though. So let's finish up this Vivo V30 Pro unboxing and comparison with a squint at that camera tech. And not only do you have the Zeiss branding here on the optics on the Pro model, you've also got an entire extra third camera lens. Now you've got a 50 megapixel primary shooter on both Vivo blowers with optical image stabilization, but it is upgraded on the Pro model to Sony's fresh new IMX920. But because you've got that Zeiss branding here on the Pro model, you do have the Zeiss natural mode, whereas it's just a bog standard natural mode here on the regular V30. Now occasionally the Pro model captures more fine detail in softer light, producing sharper looking photos. Other times it's a considerably closer result. And I actually found that the Vivo V30 Pro struggled a wee bit more than the regular model to focus on some subjects, either up close or when you're dealing with tricky contrast. And this is possibly just due to early software. Likewise, the Vivo V30 Pro's Zeiss Natural mode appears to highlight certain colours so they stand out a bit more. But overall, I really loved the photos I shot with the Vivo V30 Pro. While I do miss a proper dedicated telephoto lens for getting closer to a subject without cropping and losing detail, these optics are certainly more than good enough for the average family snapper who just wants to shoot some great looking pics of their sprogs, or also travellers who want to snap impressive looking foreign stuff and then show it all off on their social medias. But of course you've got the same set of bonus modes on both of these cameras. Portrait mode to get a nice bokeh style background effect, just really help your subject to stand out. And of course you've got a dedicated night mode as well, and if you swap to the more section, plenty of extra bonus bits to choose between. You can shoot in that max 50 meg resolution with both of these blowers. You've also got a dedicated Pro mode. Again, you've got that Zeiss natural rather than just the standard natural selection, and you can shoot RAW format images with both the V30 Pro and the V30 5G. When it comes to the alternate shooters, where you've got a 50 megapixel ultra wide angle snapper with both of these handsets. However, here on the Pro, you've also got a dedicated portrait shooter. It's another 50 megapixel f8 IMX816 sensor. So when you swap into the old portrait mode, it actually swaps to that third lens, whereas here on the regular V30 5G, it's just using the original 50 megapixel primary shooter. You got the same beauty mode shenanigans on both if you want to smooth out your skin, change your skin tone, whatever. But as you can see, there is a change when you go to the bokeh style effect. It's a simple slide and scale here on the Vivo V30 5G, whereas the Pro model actually has a bunch of Zeiss branded filters you can choose between. And both the Vivo V30 5G and the V30 Pro sport that aura light flash around back. This can be tweaked to make it either cool or warm to suit the environment and really bring out your skin tone, or at least make it look like you've got a skin tone in my case. And more differences when it comes to the video tech as well, because you can shoot 4K resolution footage on both of these blowers, but only the Pro offers that at 60 frames per second. You're stuck at 30 FPS here on the regular V30 5G. There is one other noticeable difference. If you're shooting at full HD level here on the V30 5G, you can use that ultra wide angle shooter, but if you swap up to 4K, that option disappears, whereas you can shoot 4K with the ultra wide angle shooter here on the Pro. But you do get quite similar results out of the V30 5G and the V30 Pro. Nice and crisp visuals thanks to the 4K resolution, and of course you don't get the hyper-real 60 FPS action on the V30, but honestly if you're just shooting some simple home movies or whatnot, it'll do the job. And then finally, the Vivo V30 Pro and the V30 5G both spot a 50 megapixel selfie shooter. There's not actually much difference at all in the picture quality between the V30 Pro and the regular V30 5G, but again, if you're shooting video using that selfie cam, well, you got 4K at 30 or 60 FPS on the Pro model, whereas once again, you're limited to just 30 FPS here on the regular. And there you have it, my lovelies. That in a tasty wee nutshell is the fresh new Vivo V30 Pro and how it stacks up to the original V30 5G, which launched last month. Quite a few similarities, of course, almost identical design, basically the same battery tech, the same display tech, and that same FunTouch action. However, gamers will appreciate the boost to the performance, while of course you've got that Zeiss branded camera action as well, so more serious photographers will also be intrigued. So that's what I reckon anyway of the Vivo V30 Pro and the V30 5G. As I say, check out my full review of that bad boy if you want to know more just about that phone. Please do subscribe, ding that notifications bell for more on the latest and greatest tech, and have yourselves a ruddy, wonderful rest of the week. Cheers everyone, love you!